what's gonna happen when I finally lay this body down. Is there a heaven where family awaits me, where tears will never again be found? Or will I rise up as some other life form, with a chance to make things right this time? Well, I don't know. Maybe this is all we have, so we better take this chance to shine. Shine on, even in the darkest night. Shine on, even when you can't see the light. Shine on, shine strong, shine on.
And I don't know why so many people seem to be angry all the time. It's like some dark cloud is hanging above us that won't allow the light of love to shine. There's so much of violence, fear and hatred, way too much focus on what's mine. It's time we learned again to love one another and let the light that's in each of us shine.
Shine on, even in the darkest night. Shine on, even when you can't see the light. Shine on, shine strong, shine
Let your light shine into the night. Here, take my hand. Together we'll stand. Let your light shine into the night. Here, take my hand. Together we'll stand. Shine on, 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 shine on,
This is an Okie Doke production.
Warning. The Mighty Philbert is a wicked, deplorable man who is a horrible influence on children and most household pets. He curses like a sailor, smokes like a chimney, and has impure thoughts about anime characters. If you choose to continue watching or listening to this program, just remember, I warned you.
Hello, fellow heathens. My name is Philbert. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Mighty Philbert Show. It's the Mighty Philbert Show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Mighty Philbert. I am the Mighty Philbert, and I am living dangerously because tonight I ate my own cooking. Anyway, as you can see, I'm kind of in this portrait thing. Even though I selected landscape, for my settings, it still got it this way. So I thought, okay, well, what's going to happen if I just turn my camera sideways? Maybe that'll fix it, right? As you can see, it doesn't fix it. It's just now you've got to look sideways at me. So we'll just keep it like this and hope for the best, right? So I guess you can pretend you're watching me on TikTok or something. I don't know. Let's see. Hey, Fred and Adrian and Tilting Windmills here. Hey, you got here on time. Look at you. Um, I got here on time also. That's new for all of us. So great, great, great. Um, let's see. Today I was going to talk about the new Coke effect. And so let me explain what I mean by that. If you grew up, around the same time I did, if you're a Gen Xer like me or older, you will probably remember that in 1985, the Coca-Cola company was getting some pretty stiff competition from Pepsi. And Pepsi at that time was doing this choice of a new generation, and they were doing these commercials where people uh, were taking these little tests, out in the street. They would give them a cup of something to drink, and it was between Pepsi and Coke, and people would keep choosing Pepsi over Coke in the commercials. They didn't know what it was until after they tested it and said, "Well, I like this one over here better," and then they would unveil what they had just drank, and so those commercials were taken off, and then also at this time, um, they started doing these commercials with the Jackson Five and Michael Jackson, and those went over like huge, right? And so it also featured what is his name? Alfonso something. I can't remember, but he played Carlton on the Fresh Prince of Bel Air way later. But this time he was just a little kid, but he was doing all this break dancing and stuff in the commercials and wearing the same leather jacket that Michael Jackson had wore in the Beat It music video and all that. And so Pepsi was really taken off. And so Coke figured, you know what? It seems like, as a result of those taste tests, because these were actual, from what everyone was hearing, these were actual taste tests that were being done that Pepsi was filming. And I don't know how many times people chose Coke over Pepsi. Doesn't matter. That's not the point. Anyway, they said, well, maybe we need to make our product a little sweeter. So Coca-Cola did something it hadn't done since the time it was conceived. It changed its recipe. That's right. It changed its recipe and brought out something called New Coke. Now, this wasn't just an alternative. See, this was the problem. It wasn't just an alternative. They took the old Coke completely off the shelves, got rid of them all, and replaced them all with this new Coke. And this was the only Coke you could get. They didn't leave the other as an option or anything. This was it. New Coke. They've completely changed everything. And the public went nuts. Not in a good way. They were ballistic. They said, how dare you change our beloved Coca-Cola? And people refused to buy it. And Coke began to lose money, greater than they ever had. And so eventually they realized, you know what? We messed up. And so they brought out Coca-Cola Classic. And I remember the commercials for that, with Ray Charles singing, Coca-Cola Classic, the red, white, and you. And so, that they started to gain back some of their following, but not all at once. Because during that time, the general public decided, okay, well, we can't get what we want here. Maybe we'll just try Pepsi or some of Pepsi's other products. Or maybe we'll go over here to the Dr. Pepper 7 Up company and see what they've got going on. Or A&W, or, it goes on and on. And even though Coca-Cola is still like the biggest, pop soda, whatever you want to call it, distributor out there, they never really did get the numbers back that they had had before. And so it became a lesson, you don't change the recipe. You don't lie to the public like that and take away what they're used to. And so kind of a sad story, right, for Coca-Cola that they did that and had to suffer those consequences. But you can still kind of taste New Coke. Diet Coke was the diet version of New Coke, and that recipe stayed the same, because it came out during that time. And so Diet Coke still has the recipe, with the exception of the sugar, because I think in Diet Coke they use aspartame or something like that. But anyway, so that's still kind of how it used to taste. To me, I always thought it kind of tasted like flat Coca-Cola, you know. But I don't know. I was really young when that happened. I was like 10 years old, and so. But I know around that time, I I was a Dr. Pepper guy. I was a pepper, and maybe it was the catchy tune in the commercials. You remember, it's like. I'm a pepper, you're a pepper, he's a pepper, she's a pepper. Wouldn't you like to be a pepper, to be a pepper? Drink Dr. Pepper. You remember that? That was a great commercial. I wanted to be a pepper, man. Those kids look pretty cool. And so I liked Dr. Pepper. And when companies like that, big places like Coke, when they start fiddling around with stuff, um, they do tend to lose a lot of their following. I think the only really success story in that, which doesn't have anywhere near the numbers as Coke or Pepsi, but it is a Coca-Cola product, was Pibb, because when I was a kid, it was Mr. Pibb, and then later when the energy craze, the energy drink craze came out, um, they changed it, because I mean, you had like Surge and all these other kind of energy drink, high in caffeine, high in sugar sodas coming out. So Pibb tweaked their recipe a little bit and made it, instead of Mr. Pibb, it was now Pibb Extra. And that's held on. People seem to like that better for some reason. I don't know. I love Mr. Pibb, or Pibb now. I still, as you heard, I still trip up and call it Mr. Pibb from time to time. But you know, um, that's probably the only one that really worked, out of all of them. But Coca-Cola learned a very hard lesson, and I think it kind of also um, affected the church. Not Coca-Cola, but the way the church started changing, and around the same time in the mid '80s. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But before we do, let me look at some of your comments here. Let me get back a little bit. Fred said, sorry, Phil, truth be told, it's not your face I'm here for. Well, good thing for you, because I am not what you would call a handsome man. But it's your thought process and the music. Get that album going, dude. Oh man, that is being a nightmare right now. Don't even want to talk about it right now, Fred. But let's just say that's not going to happen anytime soon. It was supposed to be going on, this month. It was supposed to come out at the end of, or the month coming up. It's supposed to come out at the end of February, 1st of March. Now I don't know what's going to happen with that. Um, Tilting Windmill says that you remember that kid. Oh yeah, yeah. That those. I remember there were like a lot of rumors going around about him that he supposedly broke his neck and died. Doing a head spin or something. It was just crazy. It's just like the kid from the Life cereal commercials. Remember Mikey? You know, uh, he likes it. Hey, Mikey, that kid. How supposedly he took a bunch of pop rocks and chased it with a Pepsi or a Coke or something, and his head blew up. Just he actually had to go on a tour, like a press tour, to show people that he was still alive. I mean, that's how bad that rumor got. It's just crazy. Let's see. Adrian messing with me says that she's also not here for my looks. Once again, good thing. Um, Skeptic Philosophy's here. Hey, how's it going, Robert? Good to see you. Let's see. What else we got going on? All right, Tilting Windmill says new Coke was bloody terrible. I never went back. Pepsi is still way better for my taste. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, even with the Coca-Cola Classic, it still kind of tasted a little different, didn't it? And I don't know. I mean, I like Ray Charles and all, but yeah, like I said, I swapped over to Dr. Pepper after that. Um, and Pibb. Loved me some Mr. Pibb. And it's kind of weird because you had like um it's like for every Coke product there was a Pepsi product or vice versa. Coke was really chasing Pepsi during this time. I mean, because Pepsi had, Mountain Dew, so Coke comes out with Mellow Yellow. And then Pepsi had um what was it? Well, they had a deal with the Dr. Pepper and 7 Up companies. That time they were separate companies, but it seemed like a lot of their stuff got sold in the same area. So they had Dr. Pepper. So, they had an agreement with them. And then so, Coke has Mr. Pibb, now Pibb Extra. And, they had 7 Up, that deal with Dr. Pepper 7 Up. So Coke had Sprite, so it was like, you know, crazy. And it was the same way in a lot of other. Like I remember RC was huge when I was a kid. You don't see RC around as much anymore. It's hard to find. Um, let's see. Adrian says she's Dr. Pepper all the way. Yep, I know that about you. Fred said he remembers wondering what all the fuss was about. I quite liked New Coke. Well, you would, Fred, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? But um, let's see. Tilting Windmill says, I love Dr. Pepper. I ought to buy some. Yeah, you should. Yeah. Yeah, some good stuff. I'm drinking a generic tonight, actually. Um, oh, whatever, Fred. Dr. Pepper's awesome. It's awesome. Who is that? The basketball guy. What was his name? He said that, it's awesome, baby. But anyway, I'm drinking a generic tonight. Uh, a Dollar General special called Dr. Topper. So you got to love these generic names, right? Anyway, yeah, Adrian says those are fighting words. Geo Sam, good to see you. Tab was something. Never drank it. Yeah, I remember. I saw Tab too. Yeah, I would see that in the stores and just kind of keep walking. Anything that didn't have sugar, I just wasn't interested in as a kid. Probably why I'm a diabetic now. Adrian says, "Ugh, I drank Tab when I was pregnant. Can't stand it now." Oh, yeah. There you go. Let's see. And Tilting Windmill was not a fan of Mellow Yellow. What's this here? It says your dad drank RC out of the tall bottles exclusively, but the bottles stopped being sold right around the end of the Coke Wars, and we switched to Pepsi. Yeah. See, I went to a church when I was a preteen and a teenager, and they had like some kind of deal with the RC company. So the church got like a whole shipment of sodas. We had this huge cooler to put them in, and so we would get like all the RC products, RC Diet Right. Um, there was one that was similar to Mountain Dew, but I can't remember what the name of it was now. And then there was Big Red, and what it had a lot of the knee high flavors like orange and grape. I like knee high grape. That was my thing. My favorite soda, probably of all time. When I was a kid, anyway. So not of all time, but of when I was a kid, was called New Grape. I don't know if you remember that, but I could get it in a big 12-ounce bottle, and I dug that. New Grape was awesome. Um, let's see. Yellow can, black letters, bear the religion, beer the religion. Yeah, yeah. I used to love the yellow, yeah, yellow cans or yellow boxes with the black letters on it that just said what it was. It's like, you know, instead of Morton salt and all that, it'd just be salt, you know, or butter. It was just great. Yeah. All right. So Geo Sam didn't drink much Coke or other soft drinks. Discovered Dr. Pepper while in the service. Yeah. What did I discover when I was in the service? I already had my soda fix going. Could get all kinds of Dr. Pepper though. You're right. It always seemed to kind of be around, didn't it? Um, I did discover that if I got caught taking a sip of beer, that not only me but everyone in my company would get punished for it. So lost a lot of friends at Oktoberfest, but that's a whole other story. Um, anyway, let's see. Orange Crush or root beer. Yeah, I loved Orange Crush. That was another one because that was a Pepsi product, right? Orange Crush, Grape Crush, Strawberry Crush, and then the Coke company had Sunkissed. Sunkissed orange and grape and strawberry. So yeah, Fred said he's a Coke addict. I'm assuming you mean Coca-Cola, right? So there you go. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Um, at home, it's been like in the teens or lower, the negative numbers, all that with the temperature. And tonight I'm out here in West Texas, just outside of Big Spring on my way to Midland. So I'm about 20 miles, something like that from Midland. And stopped here to sleep. And I got here and it was like 50 something degrees. So I'm starting to get sick again. And I was just getting over it. I'm so, so mad. Um, but anyway, so what I was talking about with the church was the church kind of did the same thing that and by the way, excuse all this, I'm having a bad hair day. But the church, they kind of changed the recipe too. And like I said, it was around the end of the 70s, about 79, when Jerry Falwell introduced us to the moral majority. And in the 80s, it really took off. And then by the time we got to the late 80s, it became the Christian Coalition with Pat Robertson, his version of the moral majority. And basically, it was just the church had entered politics in a major way. And the church has always kind of been political, and they've been on the fringes. But this is where they really started getting way too involved. And it seemed like I remember, as I think I've shared here before, being in churches where the deacons would get on to the pastor if he just reminded people to go vote on Tuesday, for election day. It wasn't that he was supporting a candidate or a party, just said, hey, don't forget to go vote. And he was called down for that in that church I was at, and that was a lot of my experience with politics as far as church went when I was a kid. They didn't discuss politics in church. You went to church to hear about Jesus and to hear about the Bible and things like that. But then when all this stuff happened with the moral majority and the Christian Coalition, the church entered politics strong, and it came to where every time you went to church, it was like you were stepping into some kind of political rally, and people didn't like it. And I said, this is one of the things that Gen X really had a problem with. We're not big on change anyway, that. But especially when it comes to things like that, things that are kind of personal to us and sacred to us, like Coke. And so, as I said, a lot of Gen Xers that started to leave the church, a lot of it had to do with how political the church was becoming. And especially as conservative as they could be on social issues. And so, like I said, a lot of us started to walk away, plus a whole variety of other problems. You got to remember, Gen Xers, we grew up right in the heart of the satanic panic, right when it was at its height. So all those things we talked about as far as, the music and the movies and the books and everything that were being banned, and being told that everything from our CDs to our, albums before that, and everything, from that to the cartoons we watched, the TV shows we watched, the movies we watched, the books we read, the toys we played with, hell, even the toilet paper we wiped our ass with had some kind of demonic influence behind it. So, okay, Geo Sam says he's a boomer. Okay, well that's good because uh, you know exactly what I'm talking about too. You were a little older going through this. You were just a young man at this time, and you saw these changes, and remember them better than what I do. But um, as the church began to change into this direction, like I said, a lot of people stopped going. When a lot of us you know, we were out of high school, getting ready to go to college. We didn't come back and go back to church. We weren't coming back to be the deacons and the Sunday school teachers of the next generation of the church. We were leaving. We had better things to do. And so, like, from that time, I'm sorry, I'm kind of looking at the chat and everything too. Um, Fred says, "What's 1960? Is that boomer?" Yeah, 1960 is boomer. Yeah. Gen X starts at 1965, like about July of 1965 until June of 1980. So about a 15-year period there. And before that, boomers were like 1945 to 65. I don't know why that got 20 years instead of 15, but it did. And before the boomers was the silent generation. That's where my parents came from, which was like from like the late 1920s or 1930s, or somewhere in the 1930s to the 1940s to 1945. So yeah, crazy, right? And then you had the millennials, which used to be Gen Y, and then now you have Gen Z. So it. But anyway, yeah, 1960s a boomer. Anyway, so walking away from the church. So the church decides a little later, because they're seeing this problem. These kids aren't coming back. We have no future deacons or Sunday school teachers, no future ministers coming up. We're suffering here. Our numbers are dwindling. They're not coming and bringing their kids with them. Things like that. So the church decided that they knew, just like Coke had done, they messed up when they changed their recipe, when they stopped focusing on evangelism and discipleship and started moving into this political arena. Like I said, it hurt their numbers, hurt them bad. So they were like, we got to get back to what we were doing before. And they tried to make it even better, because you remember, um, this is when the mega churches began to appear. And they were taking a lot of numbers from the smaller churches as well, but that's a whole other story. Um, but in a lot of these churches, they started opening like little coffee shops where you could stop in and get you a coffee and a Danish or a muffin or whatever, before the service, kind of hang out there. The youth pastors wanted to be a lot cooler, so they started wearing stuff like this and trying to dress all grungy, or they would dye their hair purple, or start to wear skinny jeans a lot and try to use the slang that all the cool kids were using at the time, you know, thinking we're going to make the church more attractive to young people. The church always goes after kids and teenagers because they're the future, right? And so, and also, there is a verse in the Bible that tells us that, if you train up a child in the ways he should go, then when he grows, he won't go far from it, or something like that. I'm butchering the hell out of that again, but anyway, it's really true, because once these kids have that foundation, even when they do leave, it's easier to win them back, because a lot of them still believe the Bible is true, that Jesus existed, that there is a God. and that now they think, well, I need to get right with God. I'm starting to get older. Some of my friends are starting to die. When is it going to be my turn? So they come back to this much friendlier church. But the problem with the church was the church didn't learn its lesson. And in 2016, it all went to hell again. And that's when a lot of Gen Zs and millennials and some of the Generation X that had hung out as long as they did and tried as hard as they could finally said, you know what? Fuck this. The hell with this. I got to get out of here. This does not represent who I am or who I want to be or who I want to bring my kids up to be. And so that that continued to just start to go down again. And now we're seeing some crazy numbers. I think I saw just this morning that only 4 out of 10 people claim to be Christian. And of course you've got out of those 4 or whatever, you got other religions, or you've got the nones, and not all non-believers are atheists. They claim to be spiritual, whatever the hell that means, or they just they're agnostic. They don't really know what's out there. They're not going to say no to this. All they say is that they don't like organized religion, and I understand that. I was there. That's where I was before I finally just said, you know what, I don't think I believe any of this anymore. But I think this is what's happening. The church didn't learn its lesson. It changed the recipe the first time and made a comeback. And I guess they were thinking, okay, it's safe to do this again, but it wasn't. And now with this rise of Christian nationalism, with Doug Wilson and so many other fundamentalists, it's just ridiculous. Okay, well, y'all are having way too much fun in the chat here. What's going on? Let me see what all this is about. See, Tilting Windmill says Boomer officially began in 45, 46, right, when all the battle-weary men came home. Yeah. These were guys who had been off to war, and all these men came back home from war, and they wanted a little nookie, and apparently they wanted way too much of it, because next thing you know, all these women are having 10, 15 kids. My wife's grandmother, what did she have? Like 15 kids, something like that. There's a woman in our town that had 20 kids. And, she was, from that generation. And, she wasn't one of the boomers. She was the silent generation before that, the ones who came home. The kids that were born as a result of that, those were the boomers. All part of, when I was a kid, they call it the baby boomers. Yeah, that was all part of that baby boom. And so, yeah, that's where that started. Let's see. Geo Sam says, your hair is mostly white now. I feel you, man. Look at my beard. This used to be black. I don't know what's happening to it. It's like on camera, it even looks whiter than it actually is. It's crazy. It's like all the hair on my face here is turning gray, and all the hair on my head is turning loose, and I don't know what to do with it, except wear a hat or something, Anyway, I remember when I was in music ministry, right? So I directed the choir, and you could kind of tell how old the picture was by how big the bald spot on the back of my head was. So yeah, it got bigger over time, Some of those early pictures, you could hardly tell there was a bald spot there, and it just kept expanding. But yeah, that kind of hurt my feelings that that's how they would figure out how old the picture was. But anyway, Tilting Windmill says, your nickname was Rudolph because your nose turns red when you drink. And I drank too often in high school and early college. Didn't we all? Yes, even in Bible school. I went to Bible school and I got wasted so many times because I hung out with preachers' kids. Just a word to the wise, to all you kids who are being forced to go to Bible school because it's the only one your religious parents will pay for, hook up with the preacher's kid. They've got just as many issues as you do, if not more, and you can always get a little puff, pass or something from them. Trust me on this, I know. Oh, and also Preacher's Daughters put out. So everybody was horny in Bible college. I'm telling you, even the good girls were putting out. It was crazy. Anyway, that's I got stuck here. I don't know how to get out of this. Okay, here we go. There it goes. All right, good. All right, so you have all these other comments. Kidding with you, whatever the hell that means exactly. All right, let's see. Happy to offend anyone, but more than 3 kids in a Western society is insane. Yes, it really is. What do you? Oh, Jill Samsa, I like the word nookie, and Adrian's talking about Limp Biscuit. Yeah, they did it all for the nookie, didn't they? Yeah. uh, wow. Let's see. What am I missing here? Okay, so what did Fred say? We could only afford cask white wine. I can't touch white wine now. Makes me chuck. Yes, we had Boone's Hill strawberry wine from Boone's Hill. That was always the go-to. That or that very fine white wine we used to pass around. Um, you know it better as Mad Dog 2020. That could make for a fun night sometimes. Um, it would help me to wake up in neighborhoods I wasn't familiar with, usually behind dumpsters, usually naked, and have no idea what my friends do in my clothes. I don't know why it was. Every time I got drunk, I ended up getting naked. I don't know if someone dared me to do it or if it's just because I got hot. I don't know, but I always ended up naked behind something like a dumpster or some old building or something, and no idea where my clothes were or how I got there or anything else. But those were the good old days. Um, your earbuds are going dead. Oh, I'm sorry, Skeptic Philosophy. Well, thanks for coming by. Maybe you can come by and watch it some more later. I don't think we're going to go much longer. I'm really upset because of the quality of this. StreamYard is not good um, for apps. It's really not. It is not good at all for apps. Uh, for live streaming with a mobile phone. I know I said apps. I guess because they don't have a mobile app. You've got to just go through Chrome and get on their website there, like you would any other time. And so, yeah, um, it like I said, even if I turn it sideways and you just have to look at me sideways, but nothing ever really changes. I've got landscape selected. I tried a test earlier where I chose landscape and portrait, and it was still the same issue. So I don't know why it won't let me go into the landscape uh, thing here. But anyway, have a good night, Robert, and hope to talk to you again soon. Fred says in college we got drunk on white 2 or 3 times a week. No wonder I failed college. Yeah, I hear you. Adrian said cheap vodka. I can hear you, Phil. That's all I need. Don't let the little shit get you down. I know. I, I'm too much on that, right? I, uh, I don't know. I just want things to be right, and everyone to have a good experience in here without any technical problems. But um, Geo Sam says you haven't used StreamYard in over a year. Yeah, I'm telling you, for as much as I'm paying for StreamYard, I'm not really happy with it. There's a lot of things that I can't seem to do with this that people on, like EV Mux or some of the others have no problem at all doing, like pinning comments, where I invite people to come in and talk with me. I can't pin that comment, to the top of it. So I don't know why. You can do it on any other streaming platform, but for some reason, StreamYard doesn't even give you the option. And also, like with this, if I'm on the road and I have to stream from my phone, I'm just pretty much screwed. I've got to look like I'm doing in some kind of freaking TikTok thing. Um, which I do have a TikTok channel. I hope you'll check it out if you ever get over there. But really, all I was trying to say was the church made the same mistake that Coca-Cola did. They changed the recipe, and about the time they started to win back people's trust, they changed it again. And this time it's like they didn't even care. And I'm saying that there's a lot of reasons Gen X walked away, but I think the one thing we always come back to is a violation of our trust. It's not what it's supposed to be. It's not what we were told it was when it comes to church or Christianity in general. And it seems to be more about, well, pretty much the same thing our government's about these days, keeping the rich and powerful, and the hell with everybody else. Come back for the nookie. Right, yeah. But that's what I wanted to talk about today. If I would have been home, I had some video clips I wanted to play and everything, but I can't do that from my phone. All that stuff's on my laptop. Maybe I'll revisit this sometime and try to do it more fancy or whatever. Um, also, I had to use the countdown from last week, which showed the video that's supposed to post tomorrow. Supposed to post. Is actually the one that posted last Sunday. So tomorrow's video will be coming out about 6 in the morning. And it's called 5 Events That Shaped Gen X. And I'm looking at 5 different things that really affected me in my childhood. So I'm assuming it affected a lot of other people as well. And I'm talking about why those things affected us the way they did. And the 5 I picked for this particular episode, we'll probably revisit this again in the future and talk about other things. But for this week, I picked first the famine in Ethiopia. I remember as a kid watching those commercials on television for what was it, Christian Children's Fund or something like that, with Sally Struthers, and they would show this footage from the famine in Ethiopia, and for 40 cents a day you can support a child, or whatever it was back then. But yeah, it was shocking, and it definitely had an effect on us. The next one I talk about was the meltdown at Chernobyl, and seeing how that affected everybody, because these were the people that we trusted who were, you know, we were just starting to get over a lot of our fears of the Cold War and trusting the scientists, who were working on these things. And then you see this meltdown and what happened and how many people died and how many people were left disfigured and things like that. And then it's not only from the actual meltdown, but the radiation in the air. That's what hurt so many people. And we just were like, why do we trust our government? This is what they've got. This could happen and all of us die from, radiation fallout. And then the number 3 one was I was talking about the AIDS epidemic. When that came out in the early 80s, they didn't know what to call it. They didn't know what it was. They were referring to it as a new kind of cancer. And it was just really bad because, like I said, there was no cure. It was a death sentence. And it became, as most things do, just like the COVID epidemic, it became a political issue. And also the religious, moral majority had to get involved and say, this is God's curse to a gay nation and all this bullshit that Jerry Falwell was spouting at the time and Pat Robertson and others. And then the second one, the number 2 one I looked at was the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. Because I know, like me, a lot of us were in school watching this live as it happened. Well, I didn't actually see it live. We were at recess when that happened, and I saw it later on the news because they weren't going to have us watch that. But yeah, it really affected me because we were all pulling for Krista McAuliffe. She was a teacher. She was going into space. We were hyped up, just a normal person, getting to go up with the astronauts. And then the number 1 thing, of course, that I put in that was the fall of the Berlin Wall. And talking about the end of the Cold War and everything, and watching as they were knocking down the walls, and the guard from East Germany walking over and shaking hands with the guard from West Germany, and it was just amazing. And so I talk about all those things and how they affected us, what our expectations were, and then what really happened. So that video is going to come out tomorrow, and probably about 6 o'clock in the morning is when I have it set to come out. So should be around there. The best way to find it is, if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell, and you will know exactly when that video is public on YouTube. So let me look a little more. I saw some more comments come in. Yeah, that was about that. Fred, religions claim to stay the same over thousands of years, which is bullshit. They're back and forth constantly in the effort to keep their wealth and power. Religion is lies. Yeah, yes, and that's something that we learned the hard way. Geo Sam brings up 3 Mile Island. Yeah, that incident. That, yeah. Oh my God, that was horrible. Why didn't I think of that one? That's, like I said, this is something I want to do, from time to time, talk about 5 events that shaped us and just focus on 5 things. Yeah, there's so much more we can cover. That's definitely got to be in the next one. Yeah, in Pennsylvania. Blaster Master, you watched it live in school. Are you talking about the Space Shuttle Challenger? Yeah, I bet you are, because I think every school, because of the fact that Kristen McAuliffe was a teacher, I think all the schools around the country got that. Geo Sam, you were working and living in New York City during 9/11. Yeah, I had a friend who worked at the World Trade Center. Lost her life during that. Just horrible, horrible, because I can't really go into it all tonight, but I remember watching that footage and the people jumping, because it's like, I'd rather jump than be, crushed. And it was just the worst thing I can remember happening. And it's just with this one, I was focusing more on the 80s, Tilting Windmill says, live in the greater Bay Area as AIDS was taking hold on the local news all the time. It really was pretty terrifying. Yeah. And you remember the marches, people coming through because they were so sick of the government lying to them. And they're like, we need research for this. We need, people to help us. It doesn't just affect gay men, because that's what they told us. It was a cancer, a disease specifically for gay men. And then they started talking about blood transfusions, and people got upset about that. They didn't, as soon as they heard it could spread through blood, people wouldn't even give blood anymore. It's like, we're not talking about the blood you give, it's the blood you take. And now we're testing that. We're looking for this, to make sure this blood isn't contaminated. People didn't trust blood transfusions for years because of that. And then there were all kinds of other rumors about how you could supposedly get AIDS, from toilet seats to drinking after somebody. It was just fucking ridiculous. But yeah, the end of the Cold War. Yeah, that's what I was talking about with the fall of the Berlin Wall. The last time I thought humanity might survive. Yeah. No, it wasn't pessimism. I think we all had that hope, but when that wall came down, new walls came up, didn't they? It was just. Adrian says, you were a sickly child, had blood transfusions, and was so terrible. Yeah, because of all the false information coming out. But yeah, at first, definitely they didn't even know they should be testing for that. And by the time they did, there was a lot who had been contaminated. Look at Ryan White. Ryan White became kind of like the poster boy during that time for AIDS, and that's how he had contracted his, was through a blood transfusion. I remember seeing him with Elton John. Elton John coming out and hugging him and taking him on tour with him, and he would make appearances with him and all that. And I remember thinking, man, maybe I need to get sick so Elton John will come see me, because Elton John was my favorite. I was a little kid, okay, so cut me some slack. I was even a narcissist then. Um, yeah, okay, Blaster Master. Yeah, I thought you were talking about the Challenger one. Um, yeah, it was really scary. Geo Sam was working in the Trade Center back in '81. Oh wow. Yeah. Um, Blaster Master, your kindergarten teacher had AIDS and died of it later. Yeah, like I said, at that time, they had no idea what it was, or all the different ways it could spread, anything about it. You know, now, um, it's not always a death sentence anymore, and that's good. But there's still so much that needs to be learned about it. Um, what did Fred say here? We may soon elect our own version of DJT here in Oz. Man, I hope not. I don't hope for humanity anymore. Just try to make mine and others' lives as best I can. That's all you can do, Fred. And that's sad, but that is really all you can do. But folks, I'm about to head out of here. And thank you so much for showing up tonight and chatting with me. And next week, hopefully, I will be home and can use my own stuff, and it won't be like this. So anyway, thanks for coming out and hanging out, and um, for not letting this be such a big deal that I thought it was going to be. So, with the problems and everything. Let me look at one last comment here, because Tilting Windmill just put this up. Your cousin eventually took his own way out. I think that was 91, but maybe 89 or 90. It's just sad. It's so sad that to not have any hope at all. And I hope that we're not heading that way again with other things going on. But look, that's why I say every week, not only to take care of yourselves, but to take care of each other. Be there for one another, and be strong for each other. The thing that Christians say they do, but they don't. Let's help each other with our burdens, and just, if nothing else, be friends. Just show that you care. It's amazing to me that the church is calling empathy a sin now, and that's the whole thing that they were supposed to be built on in the first place. Empathy is a story of their salvation. God loved the world. He gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him would not perish, right? All that. And that Jesus loved the world. Here is love, not that we love God, but that God loved us. All that bullshit that we learned. And now the church is like, empathy is a sin. According to your Bible, empathy is what gave you your salvation. But anyway, that is what it is. Anyway, until next time, remember, folks, you don't have to be religious to do the right thing. So take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and stay mighty, everybody. We'll talk to you next week, hopefully under better circumstances. All right. Bye, everybody.
You just watched the Mighty Philbert show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share it now with someone that you know, and I'll be your friend for life. Bye, everybody, and stay mighty.
This is an Okie Doke production.